The something doesn't add up. From the moment Jack and Lily Sullivan vanished, the story has shifted subtly at first, then sharply. The official version tells us one thing, but maps say something else. Timelines bend, details blur, and still too many questions, not enough answers. Why was crucial footage delayed? Why were certain roads never searched? And why, in a case that shocked an entire country, does it feel like someone's been rewriting the ending? This isn't just a missing persons case. It's a quiet unraveling of trust, one breadcrumb at a time. Stay with me, because what we're about to trace was almost erased. But before we dive into this, kindly subscribe to our channel if you believe in fighting for justice. We've just crossed 2,000 subscribers, all because of your support. And we need that same energy to reach 3,000, then 5,000, and then 10,000. So go ahead and drop your DNA on that subscribe button, because wherever you are, the day this vision is fulfilled, I will send my appreciation straight to you. Let's keep building this community that fights for justice together. Kids wander. They do that all the time. That's what Daniel Martell said. Maybe to a neighbor, maybe to a police officer, maybe under his breath, when he didn't know the microphones were still recording. But no matter the setting, those words echoed. Not because they were shocking, but because they were strategic, cold, calculated, detached. He didn't say, "We need to find them." He didn't say, "I can't sleep until they're back." He said, "They wander." Like this was normal, like children go missing for days in rural Canada and just come back. But they didn't. Lily and Jack never came back. And with that one sentence, everything changed. It wasn't just the case of a missing pair of siblings anymore. It became a mirror, reflecting something deeper. An adult who was close enough to care, but spoke like a bystander. Investigators noted the phrasing. Journalists circled it in their notes. Even community members, those who once defended Daniel, began to whisper. Because when you're the last adult to see two children alive, and your only comment is that kids wander, what are you really saying? What are you trying to hide? That sentence didn't just ring hollow. It exposed a rot, a failure, a silence that was no longer passive but purposeful. It forced everyone, media, law enforcement, neighbors, to reevaluate the timeline, revisit the alibis, re-question what they were told on day one. And suddenly, the question wasn't just where the children had gone. It was, why did it take this long to suspect the people closest to them? Because in cases like this, truth doesn't always slip through the cracks. Sometimes it's pushed, guided away from the light by the very adults meant to protect it. Daniel's words cracked the narrative open, and what poured out wasn't just grief, it was betrayal. Who is Daniel Martell? To most, he was the quiet man standing just behind the mother, the one who didn't say much, but was always there in the frame. He wasn't the children's biological father, but he lived in their home, dropped them off at school, cooked their dinners, was seen in public holding Lily's hand. To the outside world, he was the stepfather, a stable, working man, low profile, no criminal record, the kind of person who says, "Yes, ma'am," to officers and thanks reporters for their time. But behind closed doors, the picture wasn't as clean. Neighbors described a house that often seemed tense. Lily once showed up to school with what looked like a bruise near her eye. Teachers noticed Jack becoming quieter, more withdrawn. There were whispers never quite confirmed, but never forgotten either, that something inside that home wasn't right. Daniel had no public outbursts, no visible signs of cruelty, but sometimes the most dangerous people are the ones who know how to hide. He didn't speak to the press in the first week, didn't join the earliest searches, and when he finally did speak, it was brief, measured, almost scripted. And that silence carries weight. Because when you live with two children who vanish without a trace, Your silence doesn't read as grief. It reads as absence. It leaves a gap where answers should be. So why is Daniel Martell so important to this case? Because everything he did and didn't do matters now. His timeline, his knowledge of the back roads, his understanding of where the cameras were and where they weren't. This is not a character assassination. It's an investigation. And in this story, Daniel Martell is not just a bystander. He's a thread. And every thread needs to be pulled. There's a moment in every case that chills you. A sentence, a comment, a string of words that doesn't belong, because it strips away the mask. In this case, it came quietly, reported secondhand, almost dismissed as hearsay. But the words, they linger. He was asked offhand how Lily was doing. It was only 2 days after the children were reported missing. A family acquaintance, standing outside a hardware store, claimed to have overheard it. And this is what he said. She always wandered off anyway. Maybe she finally got what she wanted. No urgency, no fear, no desperation in his tone. Just a cruel resignation. As if Lily's disappearance was an inconvenience. As if she was never really his responsibility to begin with. The woman who heard it said she froze. She thought maybe he was just shaken, grieving in his own way. But even in grief, a caregiver's instinct is to protect, to plead, to pray for their safe return. Not this, not apathy, not detachment, not subtle blame placed on a missing child. It raises a critical question. How does someone speak so coldly about a little girl they helped raise? And why did no one challenge it? Not then, not there. That moment, that statement, wasn't just inappropriate. It was a signal, a rupture in the facade, the kind of thing that should have been documented, followed up on, and investigated immediately. Because sometimes truth doesn't scream, it whispers. In the wrong words, at the wrong time, from the wrong mouth. And if we're not listening closely, we miss it entirely. There's something about the way the story is told that starts to fall apart when you line it up beside the facts. From the beginning, Daniel Martell gave his account. A calm tone, carefully chosen words. But when you look closely, it's not just what he said, it's what he didn't. His statement puts him at home until noon. But witnesses recall seeing him out earlier, near the edge of Lansdowne Road. He says he helped with the search. But his name doesn't appear on the initial volunteer rosters. Not once. Not even in the group texts. Then there's the footage. 7 trail cameras were pulled from the neighborhood. One camera, directly across the wooded access point, captured someone moving through at 6:42 a.m. on April 28. It wasn't the kids, and the person's identity was never released. Yet in Martell's timeline, there's a gap from 6:30 to 9:15, when he got coffee. No receipt, no witness, just time missing. He was never asked about the bridge, never mentioned the metallic object found there, never referred to the pink sweater or the blanket, even though both were critical parts of the search narrative circulating within hours on social media. And perhaps the most chilling detail, when he was told the children might have been spotted near the water, he didn't ask what time. He didn't ask if they were okay. Just 4 words. Are you sure though? That flat reaction, no panic, no insistence to go there himself. That emotional absence. It raises red flags, not just for viewers, but for investigators. Sometimes the truth isn't found in what someone confesses. It's in the tension between their words and the facts they didn't know they were contradicting. This case has been built on the silences between statements, on timelines that don't hold, on people who claim to care, but don't act like it. And when that happens, you have to wonder, what else did he not say? And what might investigators already know, that they just haven't told us yet? Behind every missing child case, there's a moment when silence becomes too loud to ignore. And in the case of Lily and Jack Sullivan, that silence has a name: Daniel Martell. From the moment the children were reported missing, Daniel's public absence stood out. No statements, no press appearances, no emotional pleas captured on camera. Just silence. Was he advised legally not to speak? That's possible. In cases involving minors and criminal investigations, attorneys often recommend silence, especially when the scrutiny tightens. But this wasn't a courtroom. This was a community searching for two children. And his silence didn't just create mystery, it created distance. And distance in a case like this can become suspicion. Some have pointed to quiet tensions between Daniel and Malia, the children's older cousin and primary public voice for the family. In early interviews, Malia referred to certain people not cooperating. She never named Daniel. She didn't have to. Others suggest deeper friction between Daniel and the children's biological relatives, or even with local law enforcement. Did he feel cornered, judged, or was he intentionally avoiding the press for reasons unrelated to guilt, but tied to protection of himself? Because there's a difference between staying quiet to protect the children and staying quiet to protect your own story. There's also the timeline to consider. RCMP officers reportedly searched the home Daniel shared with the children twice. He was not arrested. He was not officially labeled a suspect. But that hasn't silenced the whispers. If anything, it amplified them. Why was he so absent from the narrative? Why didn't he join the public appeals? Why weren't there visible efforts from him, door to door, on foot, online? And if there was conflict behind closed doors, between him and the children, him and Malia, him and the truth, then what else was kept inside that house? There's a theory among child protection experts. When a caretaker stays quiet in the face of public tragedy, they may be following legal advice, or hiding what can't survive the light. We don't know which category Daniel falls into. Not yet. But in a case already haunted by delays, gaps, and missed signals, his silence became one more unanswered question. And every door that stays shut in this story demands to be opened. Something changed after he spoke. The statement, calm, structured, too careful, was meant to clarify. But what it did was stir something else entirely. In the days following his public words, search teams returned. Not to where they had just left, but to new terrain, more secluded, closer to the back trails, and more tellingly, closer to that unnamed wooden bridge. What triggered that shift? Was it the wording of the statement, or what it avoided saying? He claimed he hadn't seen them since the early evening. He said he went looking. He said he told the truth. But timelines became foggy. Locations blurred. His version, while polished, didn't quite match dispatch data, nor the silent trail cam logs. Suddenly, theories began to rearrange. Not openly, not officially, but you could feel the pivot in the way questions were asked, in the way certain family members were no longer quoted, in the way investigators lingered longer around the RV than they ever had before. It's not about what he said. It's about what it led to. The statement may not have been a confession, but it cracked the lens. And when that lens shifted, so did the direction of the case. Silence speaks, but sometimes, words whisper louder than silence ever could. Let's go back to the day Lily and Jack disappeared, and take a second look at Daniel, the stepfather, the one who, according to Malia's GPS log, was with the children for part of the morning. The one who said he last saw them playing by the side of the house, just before they vanished. But here's where things start to drift. Malia's GPS path was clear. Her phone tracked the walk she took with her friend, her return time, and even the approximate time she claimed she noticed the kids were gone. But Daniel, his movements weren't tracked. Not electronically, not visually, only by his own word, and later Malia's recollection. So we have to ask, was that alibi ever verified? Did anyone see him during those missing minutes? Those critical moments? Neighbors? No confirmation. Street cameras? Nothing reported. Phone pings? Still unclear. Just a man, at home, with 2 children, who vanished while he was inside. And if that sounds too neat, it's because it is. There's another detail. One that locals whispered about long before reporters got wind of it. An argument heard 2 nights before. Raised voices. A slammed door. A crying child. No official report was filed. But in small towns, the walls talk. And they remember. Daniel's statement was brief. He said he assumed the kids were with Malia. He didn't think anything was wrong at first. But time matters. In disappearances, it always does. So when you look at the timeline, the statements, the lack of hard verification, it forces a painful question. Did something happen in those minutes that was never meant to be found? And if so, did someone try to rewrite that window of time before anyone noticed the children were missing? And then just days after the children were found, Daniel Martell spoke. A man who had stayed silent through the vigils, through the first search, through the mounting suspicion. He released a statement through his lawyer. Polished, precise, perfectly timed. He expressed sorrow. He offered thoughts. He thanked the RCMP. But there was one thing missing: accountability. He said he hoped for healing. But not once did he mention where he was when Lily and Jack disappeared. Not once did he clarify what he saw, what he heard, what he did, or didn't do. And so we're left asking, was this really a statement, or a strategy? Because sometimes, it's not just what people say. It's when they choose to speak at all. 3 months of silence. Then after a witness finds their remains, he finds his voice. Coincidence? Or calculation? It's a question we can't ignore. Not when 2 children were failed by every system meant to protect them. Not when silence itself became a shield. Not when public pressure cracked the narrative. This case was never just about what happened to Lily and Jack. It was about why it was allowed to happen, and who stood by as it did. Now that the search is over, the real fight begins. For truth. For justice. For every voice that was ignored. And every trace that was almost lost forever. We were told to wait. We were told to trust. But maybe the loudest answers come not from what people confess, but from what they never thought they'd have to explain. So now we know where the signs were leading. We know the roads they didn't take, and the quiet path that held the answer all along. But there's more. Because what we've uncovered so far was just the beginning. The trail doesn't end at that wooden bridge. It only begins there. In the next video, we're going deeper into what was found, who found it, and how after all the noise, it was a single voice, a witness, who finally broke the silence. Stay tuned, because the next piece of this puzzle isn't speculation, it's confirmation. And when it drops, you'll understand why the search ended there, and how Lily and Jack were finally found. This isn't just an investigation anymore, it's a reckoning. Make sure you're subscribed, because the truth is coming.